Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before we get started, do us a quick favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell icon for notifications. You won't want to miss out on future deep dives.
Mhm.
All right, let's jump into it. Today we're heading into some of the planet's most vibrant ecosystems, tropical rainforests.
Mm,
This is definitely something that's super relevant for our UPSC aspirants out there
okay.
tackling environment and ecology.
Right.
But honestly, understanding rainforests,
Yeah.
crucial for anyone who cares about, the planet's health, biodiversity,
Yeah,
even the economics of everyday products like coffee.
exactly. What people often forget is that these lush landscapes are way more than just pretty scenery.
Oh, yeah,
They're these intricate, interconnected systems that play a vital role in maintaining biodiversity globally, even regulating our climate.
for sure. And, when you start peeling back the layers, literally in this case, you see just how complex these ecosystems are.
Yeah.
We're talking about a place where over half of all the species on Earth live,
It's incredible.
generating a huge portion of the planet's oxygen. That's mind-blowing, like a living library of genetic diversity.
And that diversity is key. Think of it as this giant, intricate web where every species has a role.
Right.
And when we lose biodiversity, we weaken the entire web, and that can have these cascading effects on the planet's health.
Okay, so before we get too deep into that web of life, let's get a sense of where these rainforests actually are.
Okay.
Our research points to a few key regions: Central and South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Oceania.
Right. All these regions have something in common. They're near the equator, where the climate is consistently warm and humid. Perfect conditions for these lush forests to just thrive.
Like a constant tropical summer.
Exactly. Fueling all this incredible growth and supporting a wealth of life.
Now let's zoom in a bit closer and look at the rainforest structure. We've all seen those amazing pictures of towering trees.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so much going on beneath the surface. Our sources describe four distinct layers: the emergent layer, the canopy, the understory, and the forest floor. It's like a multi-level city, each layer with its own unique adaptations and interactions.
Each layer is like a tiny environment with its own challenges and opportunities.
Right.
The emergent layer, for example, is exposed to harsh sunlight and strong winds, so you'll find trees with small, waxy leaves designed to conserve water.
Makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Then you move down to the canopy, which is so dense it's like a living roof over the forest below. I read it can be pretty dark and humid under that thick canopy.
Absolutely. That's why plants in the understory have evolved these broader leaves to capture as much of that filtered sunlight as possible.
So they've adapted to a world of pretty much constant shade.
Exactly. And then at the very bottom, we have the forest floor, where decomposition happens super fast thanks to the warmth and moisture. It's like nature's recycling center.
But here's something that surprised me. Despite all that lushness above the soil itself, is actually nutrient poor. That seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think with all that organic matter decomposing.
It is a bit surprising. The heavy rainfall in these areas leads to what we call leaching, where nutrients are washed away from the soil.
Ah.
So the rainforest's abundance isn't from rich soil, but from this. We need to move past just exploitation and embrace solutions that are sustainable for both people and the planet.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point, especially when you consider how tough it is to regenerate a rainforest once it's been cleared.
Exactly.
And that's actually something we'll delve into a bit more in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore why bringing back a rainforest isn't as simple as planting a few trees. It's a fascinating and complex issue with huge consequences.
It really is. One of the key things about rainforest regeneration, it's not just about planting trees.
Right. It's not like reforesting a temperate area where you can just scatter some seeds and poof, everything's back.
Exactly. Tropical rainforests are so complex, and the soil, as we've talked about, is a huge factor.
So that rapid nutrient cycling we mentioned earlier, that's crucial for rainforest growth.
Right.
But it also means the soil is easily depleted once the trees are removed.
Precisely. When you take away that dense canopy, you expose the soil to all that sunlight and heavy rainfall, and that leads to rapid leaching of the nutrients.
And I'm guessing that makes it really difficult for young seedlings to establish themselves.
Absolutely. They're basically trying to get a foothold in soil that's been stripped of all the good stuff. Plus, now they're exposed to much harsher conditions.
It's like taking a plant that's used to the shade of a greenhouse and suddenly throwing it out into the desert.
Perfect analogy. And on top of that, rainforest species are often slow-growing compared to those in temperate forests.
So it's a double whammy: tough conditions and a slow growth rate. No wonder rainforest regeneration is such a challenge.
It really is. And this is where understanding the role of biodiversity is even more important.
Because a diverse ecosystem is a more resilient ecosystem.
Exactly. The greater the variety of plants and animals, the more stable and interconnected that web of life is. This makes the rainforest more resistant to disturbances and better able to recover from them.
So if we want to help rainforests regenerate, we need to think beyond just planting trees. We need to consider the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's about restoring those complex interactions between plants, animals, fungi, microorganisms, all the things that make a rainforest thrive.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the economic side of rainforests. It's obvious they provide a ton of resources, but for our UPSC listeners, it's important to go beyond just listing those resources and really understand the complexities.
You're right. It's about understanding that balance between using those resources and managing them sustainably. For example, timber extraction. It's a huge industry in many rainforest regions, but doing it unsustainably can be devastating.
Deforestation, habitat loss, disruption of all those vital ecological processes we've been talking about.
Exactly. But there are alternatives like selective logging, where you only harvest certain trees, leaving the forest ecosystem relatively intact.
And I've read about these certification programs that try to promote sustainable forestry, making sure that the timber we use comes from responsibly managed forests.
Right. These are the kinds of initiatives we need to support if we want to balance economic needs with environmental protection.
And it's not just timber either. Rainforests are a source of all kinds of valuable agricultural products. Cocoa, coffee, tons of fruits and nuts.
And this is where agroforestry comes in.
Agroforestry, is that where you combine trees and crops?
That's it. It's a way to integrate trees into agricultural systems. So you get multiple benefits, soil conservation, shade for the crops. You can even get extra income from timber or fruit production.
So it's a more sustainable way than just clearing huge areas of rainforest for monoculture plantations.
Exactly. And it helps preserve biodiversity by creating more diverse and resilient agricultural landscapes.
So it seems like finding sustainable solutions is all about understanding the rainforest ecosystem and working with nature rather than against it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're a part of this ecosystem, not separate from it, and that our actions have ripple effects throughout the whole web of life.
Now, for anyone preparing for the UPSC exams, it's also super important to understand the role of indigenous communities in rainforest conservation.
Absolutely. Indigenous peoples have lived in and managed rainforests for centuries. They have this incredible wealth of traditional knowledge about these ecosystems and how to use them sustainably.
So it's not just about protecting the rainforest. It's also about respecting the rights and the knowledge of the people who call these forests home.
Exactly. Involving indigenous communities in conservation is essential for the long-term health and sustainability of rainforests.
This deep dive is really showing all the different sides of rainforest conservation, from the ecological to the economic to the social.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but by understanding the challenges and the opportunities, we can start to work towards solutions that benefit everyone, both people and the planet.
We've covered so much already.
Huh.
The unique structure of rainforests, the challenges of regeneration, the balance between economic activity and conservation.
Yeah.
But there's another piece we need to explore, and that's the role of rainforests in regulating the Earth's climate. So this brings us to a pretty crucial aspect, especially these days.
Yeah.
The role of rainforests in regulating Earth's climate. Our sources talk about how important they are as these massive carbon sinks absorbing and storing tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
It's like they're doing this huge service for the whole planet,
Yeah.
helping to fight climate change by keeping those greenhouse gases in check.
And that whole carbon sequestration process has huge implications for how we approach climate solutions, right?
Absolutely. Protecting and restoring rainforests has to be a key part of any plan to tackle climate change.
Right. It's not just about cutting emissions, it's about protecting these natural carbon sinks.
Exactly.
Because when we lose rainforests, we're not just losing trees and biodiversity.
Right.
We're releasing all that stored carbon back into the atmosphere.
Exactly. It's like a double whammy for the climate. It makes global warming worse and reduces the planet's ability to absorb future emissions.
This really highlights how interconnected everything is. Biodiversity conservation, sustainable practices, climate change, it's all linked.
For sure. It's this holistic perspective that's so important for anyone trying to tackle environmental challenges, especially for our UPSC listeners who might be future policymakers.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into tropical rainforests, from their unique structure and incredible biodiversity to the economic and climate implications. It's clear that these ecosystems are way more than just pretty scenery.
Yeah.
They're vital for the planet's health and well-being.
And understanding how complex and important they are is the first step to making sure they're protected for future generations.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic. Dive into the specific challenges and opportunities in different rainforest regions. Learn about the indigenous communities working to protect their homes. Research the latest scientific findings and how technology can help with conservation.
Every little thing helps, whether it's supporting sustainable products, advocating for better policies, or just spreading the word about how important rainforests are. Let's all do our part to protect these amazing ecosystems.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of tropical rainforests. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.